Good morning. The title for today is Ninth Wave, Finding and Occupying Our Center. We live in a polarized world. That's why we have conflict and war. Each human polarity feels a need to eliminate its opposite. You see it clearly in the attitude of some that demonstrate for a better world, as getting rid of the opposition is often stressed. The degree of our success in creating a world that works for everyone, as I see it, depends on our willingness to come from our hearts and not our heads, which is where polarization originates. Can you center yourself? Or are you stuck in a paradigm of opposition? I'll be honest with you. It's easy to get stuck in a paradigm of opposition as we experience our human existence on this planet. There are so many things in our world that I'd like to eliminate. And yet, I become more and more aware as time goes on that the only way that I can eliminate anything in my world is by first finding it within my own being. I'm convinced that I cannot even perceive anything in the outer world that is not first inside of myself. That I am the root of all of the conflict that's in the world. Not somebody else, not the bankers, not the politicians, not the governments or the corporations. Not anything that's out there is at cause. The cause is inside of us. All of us. Each of us. We are the root cause. I'm thoroughly convinced that the awakening of consciousness has more to do with what is going on inside of us and the perspective of which we are able to view ourselves and our world than it does just by being able to perceive what we don't like about the world. Yesterday, I joined with the demonstrators early on. I was not able to march because I had to go to a meeting. And by the time I got back from the meeting, the demonstration had ended. But in any case, I see people that seem, from my perspective, to get it, that it is about peace, and it is about love, and it is about centering. But I also see an awful lot of people that are there because the job situation, or because of immigration, or because of this problem or that problem. And being aware of the problems is an excellent thing. I'm not saying don't be aware of the problems. In fact, those that are part of my spiritual family, some of them have a strong tendency to deny the problem. And denying the problem is not the answer either. But only focusing on the problem will not solve it. Because we have to first deal with the root cause, the issue. The issue is in us. We don't know who we are, and we don't take responsibility for our own lives. There are a lot of people that say, well, the Occupy Wall Street is about socialism. Everybody wants the government to take care of them. Folks, we need to understand it's not the government's job to take care of anybody. It's our job to rein in the government and make it smaller and smaller, not bigger and bigger. The job of taking care of each other is what we do for each other out of love. But it's not, when we hand over that responsibility to a government, we get corruption. Because we've given up our power, and when we give up our power, it creates a vacuum in us, and somebody has to fill that vacuum. And when we've said to somebody else, take care of me, then We've empowered them to be our authority. And then we bitch and moan because they tell us what to do. That's the way our world has been working. Can you see that it doesn't work? Can you see the futility in giving your power away to somebody else? Yet that's exactly what we've done. We absolutely need to take responsibility, each of us, for our own lives, and we need to live with compassion for those around us. Then there are the conservatives that wouldn't help anybody, that don't want anybody to be helped. That's why when I look at the political thing, I try to find the middle ground, which is why I've chosen a label called progressive-libertarian. Because ultimately, when we grow up, we're going to be able to take responsibility for ourselves. We're not going to be needed to be taken care of like we did when we were little children. And a lot of adults are still little children in their mentality and in their spiritual capacity to take responsibility. They don't want to take responsibility. Many adults are in that category. And the conservatives would say, tough. But I can't do that. I can't just say tough, especially to people that are innocently ignorant. And I think most people are innocently ignorant. It's not because they want to be ignorant. It's because nobody's ever told them the truth. And we all have a bad tendency to believe that whatever we now see is all there is. So many people are closed-minded and closed-hearted and unwilling to even explore the truth. And that has to change. But our culture has not been a culture of truth. It's been a culture of lies. This is a reality that we have to face. We have to face the reality, though, that the root of the lies is that we have lied to ourselves. That it's somebody else's, God's or somebody else's responsibility to take care of us. Somebody said, we don't need the Republic, we don't need the Constitution. That was an email I got yesterday, I read last night. We don't need them because God's going to take care of us. And I responded, God doesn't do anything except through us, through people, through creation. God works through creation. God does not act independently of creation. God manifests through creation. And it is creation's responsibility to take responsibility for itself. That's what God wants us to do. Just like when we give birth, a husband and a wife have a child, and they start a family, and the child comes in apparently not knowing anything. I don't really believe that's true. I believe they come in knowing everything and then forget because we train a child to forget. But I believe a child comes in connected more greatly than most adults, but is unable to articulate and communicate what it knows. And then it learns from its environment. Its environment overshadows what it knows, and so it forgets. The child simply doesn't remember anymore. I mean, I remember my 3-year-old granddaughter, my oldest granddaughter, who turns 9 on October the 28th. And she said, Mommy, I remember when I was big and you were little. I was the mommy then. I mean, she was I don't even think she was 3.5 at the time. Had never been taught anything about reincarnation or any such thing. But she remembered. Now, 6 months later, she didn't remember anymore. She didn't remember ever even having said that. It was totally erased from her memory bank as far as her consciousness goes. This is what happens with human beings. We forget. And so the biggest thing that needs to happen in this time of occupying Wall Street and protesting against the conditions of our world, we need to find our center, and we need to take responsibility for that, and we need to remember who we are. We need to remember that I was big and you were little. I was powerful and not weak. We need to remember that's the root that we came from. We are infinite and eternal beings. We need to know that. This thing is not about time and space and what happened when we were born and since then. It's much bigger than that. It goes back to infinity and on into eternity. It is a continuum. We are a continuum. We are experiencers. That's what the soul is. The soul is an experiencer of life. And it creates chapters and acts and further unfolding of opportunities to learn and to experience and to observe. That's what we are. That's what we are. And when we take back our power and stop giving it away to governments, governments can no longer rule over us. When the government tells me what to do anymore, I say, show me the contract. Show me the contract. I haven't contracted with you. I haven't given my power to you. Show me where I have, and then I will obey. Otherwise, I have no requirement to obey, because everything works in the cosmos by contract, by agreement, and we make subconscious or unconscious agreements with the government every day as part of our routine, giving away our power day in and day out throughout our lives, and then we wonder why we live in a world that sucks. Well, it sucks because we don't take responsibility for it. It sucks because we don't speak up for what we want. It sucks because we don't know what we want. Because we're not centered. Because we've forgotten the essence of who we are. We have forgotten how powerful we are. And so the government operates by consent of ignorance. And all of the contracts are entered into ignorantly. Do you understand what I'm sharing with you? These are important concepts for each human being at this time especially to grasp. We need to know the root of why the world is the way that it is. And when we know the root, we can change the problems simply by seeing them from a different perspective. A perspective of empowerment instead of enslavement. When you're depending on someone else to take care of you, that's enslavement. That's enslavement. It's immaturity. It's childishness. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? What I'm sharing with you? Do you grasp what I'm saying? I need for me to take responsibility for me. And I choose to love. I choose to be compassionate. I choose to embrace those that have different viewpoints to the best of my ability. I fall short sometimes. I forgive myself because I accept that I am a human, having a human experience. Being God is easy. Being human is really, really difficult at times. There's a lot of requirements to be human when you're playing with half a deck. And we play with half a deck. I trust that what I'm sharing with you resonates at some level of your being. And my desire, my greatest desire for each of you, is that you will find your own center. Because the more of us that find our center, the more rapidly we can progress through these changes that are upon us as we stand at the threshold of a brand new paradigm of experience. A paradigm of unity consciousness instead of separation consciousness, where polarization ends and polarities dance instead of dueling with each other. I leave you with this. May you be blessed today. Namaste. Thank you very much for listening.